And essentially, if you look in the Charter of Rights and Freedom, it refers to the fact that every individual has the right to the security of their person. The person is that legal entity created by way of your association with the government, acting as a fiduciary agent over that security of your person. And when you look at the security of your person, it doesn't mean protection from harm or anything like that. It's an actual physical document, just like stocks, bonds, and securities that they would sell on the market. And that is what you, as an individual, have the right to. But once you seize that security, the person no longer exists, because the person is evidence that someone's holding your security for you.
So how do you pick that up?
I'm still working on it. We're making demands. Essentially, you should just be able to demand it under Section 337, but then you have to prove it actually exists. And these people, I mean, we've caught them with their hands in the cookie jar. They're not just going to roll over easily and say, well, what does this mean? They're running and hiding. They're deceivers. They don't want to get caught.
You mean 337 of the
Criminal Code of Canada refers to demands made against anyone who is holding something by virtue of their employment with the government. If a demand is made for its return and they fail to return it, they're liable to 14 years in prison. But in order for us to get that, personally, I believe that our courts have essentially been hijacked by corporations. And that's the big problem. I mean, in order for these corporations to govern us, they can only interact with other corporations. So they impose corporate personhood upon us. They act upon that. Then if we try to break away, they claim, okay, well, you have these courts, they're only for corporations now. And what I see as remedy is we have to convene new courts where only people are heard and corporate fictions are not. They're simply, sorry, you're not heard here.
Where did this, where did this sort of, I don't know, movement, if you'd call it a movement, like sort of originate, and what positive repercussions have you had via, like, practicing these theories upon the system? Because some people want to change the system from inside of it instead of, existing from the outside.
I think it's very difficult to change a tire if you stay in the car. So
Okay, I don't know.
well, if you're trying to change a flat tire,
Yeah.
you pretty much have to get out of the car. So some systems you simply
Yeah,
can't
but-
fix.
Your life, are you trying to be tax-free? Are you trying
Well,
to have 0 income?
I'm tax-free.
Are you trying
I've
to remove
got
yourself from Canada?
Did you want me to answer your question?
Yeah, I agree.
Essentially, I pay no income tax. I have no social insurance number. Your social insurance number identifies you as a government employee, and because of that,
Was you born with one?
what's that?
You weren't
No.
registered?
No, you have to get
No,
one.
people actually, a lawyer is on record stating that a human being is born with neither name nor number and has no obligation to have either. So if a cop comes and says, what's your name? Sorry, I might not be using one today. I have no obligation to have one. Essentially, income is not, if you go out and you labor and you get paid wages, that's not income unless you're acting with your social insurance number. Then you're acting as an agent for the federal government, and the corporation that hired you as an agent. It's like if you go to a temporary work site for the day and someone calls them up and says, yeah, I need 5 laborers, so you go out for day laboring. You were actually hired by that company that sent you out, the Day Labor Corporation, as an agent. Or you were acting as an agent for this corporation, not an employee for this one. And that's what's happening when you go and you get a job with your social insurance number. You're identified as a government agent, and that's your employee identification number. Now, you can work without that, but you have to do it under contract for hire instead of a contract for service, and you don't pay into Canada Pension Plan, unemployment, any of that stuff, but nor can you then draw from any of that.
Is that like off the books?
No, it's
Well, as a resident of Canada, you're taxable in Canada.
I'm not a resident of Canada.
Where's your home?
It doesn't matter. Resident has nothing to do with domicile.
Absolutely.
I have a domicile. I don't have a
Where's
residence.
your domicile?
It doesn't matter.
It does, because that provides where your taxable.
Mister, I don't know you at all, and I'm not giving you personal information as to where I live. I live in North
To be
Vancouver.
tax-free, you'd have to have a domicile that exists in no boundaries.
In order for me to be taxed, I must have
And then you'd have to
I
have
must
a
have
tax
an
treaty
account.
alliance,
I
like-
must have an account with Canada Revenue Agency. In order to
Provided
have an
you
account,
never earn an
in
income.
order to have an account with them, I need a social insurance number. If I don't have a social insurance number, I don't have an account, and there is no mechanism for them to collect anything from me.
And this only works if you never work to earn income.
No, well, actually, income is not defined by wage. If you take money, you put it in the bank, you collect interest. that's income. If you buy stocks and you get dividends, that could be deemed income. If you go out and you work and you do construction, you get paid and you walk away with your wage, that's not income unless you're operating with a social insurance number. Then they could deem that to be income, but even then you could argue it. As for your concern, collection of taxes is a function of government. Failure, if you try collecting from me and call it a tax and you're not my lawful government, that's merely extortion. Being a lawful member of my government or lawfully governing me requires my consent. In the absence of my consent, there is no government and there's no one to collect the taxes. And I've got every right in the world to live anywhere in Canada and not have to consent to these corporations who claim that in order for me to live here, I must, consent to their governance? That's complete bull.
Does this work in any government around the world, any country? Like
any common law jurisdiction we found it in. We found it in New Zealand, Australia. It's found in Greece, in Spain, even though they're not really common law. In Canada as well, and people have found success with it in the U.S. as well, especially in Texas. And where's the other place? I think it was Florida. Someone found success with the sheriffs there who said, yeah, no, we support your right to do this, and as long as you're not collecting these services, you're good to go.
Is the province or Canada, are they the fiduciary agent right now? And who's going to be, are we going to be like...
Yeah, you have to do it yourself. You have to learn to,
So then when we're free, then we'll be a fiduciary agent for ourselves.
No, because then the fiduciary agent means someone else is acting for you. You're just operating for yourself. There is no fiduciary.
Okay, so we eliminate that.
The fiduciary is because you're not operating for yourself.
So the province would be,
Well, no, you become your own.
I mean now, province
Yes,
is for people who still
likely.
operating
Yes,
with
I
the
believe
state.
so.
I'm sorry, I was just wondering, was there a time, you said that at one time people weren't children of the state? When did you know when that happened? Or like, you
Probably
said at
about-
one time you were your own agent, but now you're saying
Well,
we're
no,
not?
you were never your
never
own
were.
agent.
Okay.
Yeah, you were
I was
just
just
a
unclear about
citizen.
that.
You were just like my grandfather, for instance. I can remember my dad I remember my dad not having his license and refusing, saying, "Oh, I'll go get one when I need one. I don't need one right yet," because he had been a market gardener. And they brought their produce to market to Windsor, Ontario from Amherstburg. It was maybe, 2-hour drive kind of thing. No license, no permit. Every day they went to market with it. And my grandfather, I can remember my dad talking about my grandfather being told that he had to go get a license, and my grandfather saying, prove it, and then just out of spite kind of thing, refused to get one for like 3 or 4 years when they first came in back in the 30s. It was after the Depression that they started doing this, and they mostly did it. They got people to do it by saying, here, if you need benefits, you have to apply for these benefits. So then they'd apply for it, but that act identified you as someone in need, and therefore that's when the child started getting, the child of the state was created.
Technical question. If every one of us here has a social insurance number, but you from the States and yourself, how would you provide them to become like you without the number to remove themselves?
What do you mean?
How
How?
do we remove the number?
Because they've been in the taxable system.
You just
They're in the
abandon it.
MSC.
You abandon it. You've got a right to association. You've got a right to disassociate at any time. You simply cut it up and you never use it again. And when they try to say, look, you've got this number, no, I don't.
But the CRA is going to come after you.
So what? They have to prove existence of an association between you and that number. And if you have served notice on them saying, listen, I am no longer associated with that
So
number.
serving notice is the step that everybody
Essentially, yeah, and then you abandon your
So remove yourself
service.
from
The
the
goal to
numbers.
have like everyone abandon everything and like turn this. I mean, because like
I don't believe so.
otherwise it seems like sort of just like a.
I don't believe in anarchy. I mean, if you look at true freedom, freedom is not like you look at steps. The first step is a reliance on the government, and then the second step is a rejection of that. But that leads to anarchy, and the third step is true freedom, where you have an interdependency with your fellow man, but that allows you a societal and community
What's
freedom.
the benefit? What's like your?
No fear. Cops pull up to me. I was sitting in West Van once, and I was drinking.
What's your fear with cups?
Well, I don't have any anymore, but
We all drink beer, we all hang out, we all do whatever to a
Yeah,
certain extent.
when,
but
if
like
you're
saying, like,
traveling
you
down
just
the
can't
road,
touch me?
if you're traveling down the road and a cop pulls in behind you,
Yeah.
don't you get a little bit nervous?
Yeah, but that's just like because they're cops.
Yeah, and that disappears. That disappears
But
completely
that's what
because